Welcome to episode 2 of PCOA Voices. I'm your host, Lisa Reams. I'm the Vice President for Programs and Services at PIMA Council on Aging. And the purpose of PCOA Voices is to inform you, engage you, and hopefully together we can have some fun along the way. So welcome to my home. With all of us staying physically distant right now, it's nice to be able to welcome people into my home this way. So thanks for joining me. If you're new to PCOA, PIMA Council on Aging is your local nonprofit organization that helps coordinate services for older adults in Pima County. So we provide information, resources, referrals, advocacy, nutrition programs. We also help older adults achieve independence and wellness, and we provide support for family caregivers. If you're just finding our show right now on episode 2, you can still catch the original broadcast from our first episode on our website, which is pcoa.org. You can also catch it on PCOA's Facebook page. And if you're watching this broadcast live, which is Friday, June 26th at 1 o'clock, you can interact with us via chat. We have staff at our organization that are here to say hi to you and answer any questions that you may have. We'd love to hear from you. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, there's a chat screen where you can just type in your comment or your question and just push enter. If you're joining us on Vimeo, to chat, you'll need to log in with a free Vimeo account or with your Facebook account in order to chat. Or you can select chat as guest and follow the on-screen instructions. And once again, then you would just type your question into the chat window and push enter. We'd also love to hear from you anytime by email. We set up a special email address just for this show. You can join us at voices@pcoa.org. I heard from a couple of you after our last show that being distant from each other right now and feeling disconnected or isolated was one of the hardest things for you. And you know, that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this show in the first place, was that all of us felt a little more connected and real with each other right now. And hopefully you get to know us better and feel more comfortable with us along the way, because we're here to help and we want to be engaged with you. We do plan also for one of our upcoming episodes of PCOA Voices to be able to focus specifically on how we can stay connected with each other right now and the importance of doing that. So stay tuned for that. So on today's show, we have some great information for you and a few faces that I'd really like you to meet. First, I want to highlight World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. That was technically back on June 15th, but here at PCOA, we'll be spending the entire month of June to draw attention to this important issue. We've been doing a lot of work in this area for a lot of years, and it seems to me that the scams and the fraud just get more elaborate and advanced as time goes on. Let me share a story with you for a minute. Earlier this year, I received a phone call one evening from a friend of mine, and he was really worried about his mom and felt like she was being scammed and wasn't sure what to do. Here's how the story went. She received a phone call from someone who the caller ID identified the caller as being from a large tech security company that you would be familiar with. And because caller ID said that, she believed that that's who the caller was. So she was more likely to trust them. And they instructed her that they were investigating some fraud at the institution where she did her banking, and that they found some anomalies related to her account. And they were very concerned, A, that they wanted to be able to stop this from happening and figure out what was going on, and B, that she was not going to have any money left in her account if they didn't fix this. So they said that so far they've been able to tell that someone involved inside at the bank seemed to be involved in this. So it was important that she didn't talk to her bank about this phone call or what was going on. So they instructed her that she should get in her car and that she should drive to, they gave her a list of like 4 different businesses that she should drive to, and she should use her debit card from her bank to purchase gift cards at these institutions, so that they wanted to be able to track money coming out of her bank account so that they could hopefully figure out what was going on. So that they knew which places she had gotten gift cards from and the amounts, they asked her to take a picture of the gift cards and the receipt and send those to them on that phone number, to text them on that phone number. And so she did all of this, completely believing this is who it was, completely believing that she was helping uncover fraud at her bank, and make sure that her money was safe. So she did all of this, and they told her that at the end of this, that they'd be able to track what was happening, and they would put the money back in her account. Well, needless to say, after she purchased these gift cards and sent the information off, she stopped hearing from the folks. They went radio silence on her. And that's when she realized that she had just been scammed. And so she came home, and her family was just happy to have her home at that point. They were really worried about her. But that really hit home for me, and I know they were very disturbed about what happened. And I was really disturbed, kind of helping the family in real time with the situation. It was a scary moment. And I doubt this is really unique or unusual. So it made me want to talk about this on the show, so that hopefully we can all learn a little bit more about fraud and scams, and what to do if we or our family members fall prey to those. So I decided to introduce 2 valuable team members here at PCOA who work with fraud and scams every day to be able to help us understand this issue a little better. So please welcome Ray Vermeil and Linda Kumalo. Welcome to PCOA Voices.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda. Nice to be here.
Great to have you both. So Ray, tell me, do you hear stories like that often?
Unfortunately, I do hear things like that all too often, and it's amazing how good the scammers are at coaching the people that they're trying to victimize into avoiding telling loved ones, avoiding telling the bank certain things. They're really skilled at what they do.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it. Ray, can you tell us a little bit about what your role is at PCOA and the types of things that your program can help with?
Sure. We basically can take calls from anyone about anything that another program at PCOA doesn't already address. And so we handle calls about landlord-tenant issues, consumer issues such as unfair sales practices. We can help people apply for benefits. We direct people to legal resources. And then, of course, we also talk with people who call in with concerns about alleged scams, exploitation, fraud and abuse, neglect. And when you were telling your story, it reminded me of a client that called that it had been a very sad situation where she had been approached through Facebook by what appeared to be a long lost friend who was wanting to reconnect, and told her about this incredible investment opportunity and how she's been living the life of her dreams because of the money she'd earned, and doesn't this friend want to do it too? And it was just so very sad that this woman lost thousands of dollars because of this scam. And so what we like to do is we'll talk to people, we'll direct them to the best resources, government investigative agencies, adult protective services, and do the best we can to help support people.
That's awesome, Ray. I know you're super helpful to a lot of people, and you have a great team that helps you with that. Now, let me jump to Linda for just a moment. Linda, welcome. We're so delighted to have you here. I know you're fairly new to the Tucson community and to PCOA. Will you tell us where you moved from and how you found your way to PCOA?
I am fairly new to Tucson, that's correct. And this is my 4th year as of last month, as a matter of fact. And I moved to Tucson in 2016 from Memphis, Tennessee, after spending 22 years there. and came to Tucson on vacation on the 15th, I'm sorry, in 2015, and and, and love the place. I love the mountains. I love the weather. I'm an avid hiker. I have hiked just about every trail in Tucson, in and around Tucson, with some of my friends. And I volunteer with Lend a Hand, and that is how I came to know about Pima Council on Aging. Love what the agency does. I love the demographic that they serve. It's my passion. I am my grandmother's child. I'm the eldest grandchild. So this is what we grow up to be, the doted ones. And I couldn't be more happy to have been part of this, to be part of this organization. And I've been with Pima Council on Aging since November of last year.
Well, that's great. Love having you here too. I knew the first time I met you that I wanted you to be involved with PCOA. I think I've told you that. Tell us about the program that you work with at PCOA.
Yeah, I work with Senior Medicare Patrol. As Ray said, she handles everything else, but we deal specifically with Medicare issues, fraud, waste, billing errors, and anything related to Medicare. This is a program that was started in 1997, and it is funded by the Administration for Community Living. And it works with volunteers. It's supposed to empower Medicare recipients and their families, teaching them how to detect fraud and report it, and be able to read their Medicare summary notices or their billing statements, know what they are supposed to be billed for, know what doesn't look right, know how many times they can get a particular service before they are billed, and so many things that have to do with Medicare that a lot of scammers take advantage of. And we want them to keep in mind that statistically, as of now, we know that $60 billion is wasted in Medicare fraud and other errors. So that's what we try to stay ahead of with the community.
Well, I know that so many of us are so appreciative that there are folks like you that know a lot about Medicare issues, because it's so hard to understand for all the rest of us. Back to Ray for a minute. Ray, can you tell us what are the most common financial scams and fraud that you see?
Unfortunately, there are quite a few that are really well thought out, well played by the scammers. One particularly insidious scam is called the funeral scam, where individuals will read the obituaries and they will actually target, grieving spouses at a time when they are their most vulnerable, and either claim that they have an unresolved debt that their spouse left behind, or even go to the funeral and try to cultivate a friendship. Which then can later even evolve into the romance scam. And the romance scam is one that can frequently happen for older adults who are lonely, who would like to have someone special in their life. And the person will say, "Oh, I'm overseas, but I want to come see you, but I don't have any money. Please, pay for my airfare." And before the person knows it, they've sent a lot of money overseas to this person who allegedly is in love with them. There are also lottery and sweepstakes scams, where an individual is notified that, wow, you've won the $2 million lottery, but you just have to send this money to cover the taxes in order to get your winnings. And so, we just want people to know you never have to send money in order to get money. That is an all too often common scam. There are charity scams where someone will identify themselves as a charity and get money that way. Also, the internet has a lot of different scams and fraud, such as email phishing, where it'll appear that you're getting an email from a verified source, such as your bank, asking you to update or verify your personal account information, when actually it's a complete scam. And so there are just a lot of things to really be careful and alert for.
Ray, if I can ask you a follow-up question about that for a minute. One of the things I hear is that people that end up falling for these scams, um, that they're people that maybe have dementia or some type of cognitive impairment. And I'm curious whether that's often the case or whether they're people like you and me. And also, I know that there's challenges around people and their willingness to report scams because of how they feel about having gone through that. Could you talk about both of those things for a minute?
Absolutely. This is one of the most important takeaways, I think, from what I'm talking about in terms of fraud and scams is that yes, people can have dementia and they can be taken advantage of, but there's a vast number of people who are just like you and me who are perfectly capable and have capacity. But what needs to be known about these scammers is that these are people who are professional con artists. Often they are part of organized crime syndicates. They can be overseas. This is their vocation. This is their job. They study people's vulnerabilities. They study human behavior, and they know what to appeal to people, such as identifying themselves as a government agency, because so many of us respect the government and want to comply. And so just to emphasize, no government agency will ever call and ask for your personal information, not unless you notified them or contacted them first. But these are pros. And so I do want to reinforce people to make a report. Please don't feel ashamed or stupid. These guys are professionals and it's so easy. They know how to play on all of our vulnerabilities.
Thank you, Ray. I think that's super important. Linda, back to you for a second. I know that COVID-19, in addition to the many other challenges that it's provided for us, has unfortunately created new opportunities for scams and fraud artists as well. Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah, unfortunately, well, for us, what we see most of is billing errors, and that's primarily related to the numerous changes that have been taking place with the COVID-19 situation. So oftentimes providers are not sure what to bill and what not to bill, and they find out after the effect, oh, it's coded incorrectly. The one thing we want to make sure first is that it's an error. It's not necessarily fraud. So we go over the statement, we go over the Medicare summary notice, call the provider with the client, and make sure that they didn't do this in error. If it is indeed fraudulent, we go ahead and help them file the report and report it to Center for Medicare Services or to all the other relevant agencies. And another one that's quite prevalent is people going door to door selling PPEs, the personal protective equipment, gloves and masks, and getting people's Medicare information that way, or offering to clean their houses and sanitize them to kill COVID-19, selling cures that we all know that right now nothing FDA has approved that will take care of the coronavirus. So it's primarily that, and we want people to be aware that Medicare will never call you or send people door to door to get your information. The only people who should have your Medicare identity are your provider that you are very much comfortable with, and say your family members or your representative, your guardian. Don't give it to just anybody, and don't sign documents to someone who just walks to your door and asks for that information.
Really good information, Linda. Thank you so much. You're both amazing resources, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. Tell me specifically, if somebody believes that they've been scammed, that they've been a victim of a scam, or a loved one has, what specifically should they do? Ray, you want to address that first, and then Linda?
Sure. Absolutely make a report. There are a number of things that people can do. There's a new national elder fraud hotline that is available, and they actually have case managers that can talk with someone to determine what kind of scam or fraud occurred, and then refer the caller to the appropriate government agency to investigate. But even if someone is already having fraud, their alleged fraud or scam investigated, that's an excellent hotline because they have so many other resources and supports that they can provide as well. Also, Adult Protective Services. In Arizona, you can call their hotline, can also make a report online 24/7, and they investigate allegations of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And they have individuals here locally that are happy to look into those things. That's what they do. They look into things, they protect individuals, and they can also connect people to resources. Most of all, though, I just want to say, if someone doesn't know whether something is reportable, or they just want to speak to someone about their concern, to always feel free to call Pima Council on Aging, call the helpline, and any one of us in Rights and Benefits is happy to talk to someone.
And just to remind people again, the helpline phone number is 790-7262. We probably just need to make sure I say that every show. Linda?
Yeah, just like Ray said, and our focus is to make sure that we don't say something is fraudulent. We want to make the necessary phone calls. We start with the provider, the person who's billing, and verify that it is actually an error maybe that can be corrected without involving a whole lot of people, or if it is fraudulent, then we do the necessary reporting. People can come to Pima Council on Aging or call us, of course, in this self-distancing times. Call us at our number, hotline, same hotline, 520-790-7262, and we will be more than happy to help them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have to say, yeah.
I'm sorry, and Lisa, if I could just add, there is a wealth of information on the internet for, family, caregivers, loved ones, individuals themselves at the National Council on Aging, AARP, National Center on Elder Abuse. Really, really good information out there on things to look for.
Thank you for adding that, Ray. I have to ask before we say goodbye, Ray, I remember from talking with you that you actually went to school to study art initially, and I'm curious how it is that you knew you needed to switch gears and work for older adults.
That's such a good question. And actually, the primary reason in the beginning was that I wanted to have food to eat and a roof over my head. So just didn't think that I was going to make my living as an artist. But I think that basically for me, it all began when I used to visit my grandmother in the high-rise apartment that she lived in and played dominoes with her and her buddies. And I loved doing that. I ended up becoming a certified nursing assistant all through college. And I just always knew that I had that place in my heart for older adults and knew that that's what the population I wanted to work with.
Well, we're so fortunate that you did. Well, perhaps one or both of you will be able to join me on a future show. Thank you both so much for being here. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you,
Happy
Lisa.
to be here.
We are going to go to Karen, and Karen is going to share with you our health, aging, and wellness tip of the week. Here's Karen.
Today's health, aging, and wellness tip is to manage stress. This is very difficult for many of us to do, but we do know that stress can cause memory loss, fatigue, and decreased ability to fight off and recover from an infection. So it's important for you to remember to take care of yourself by getting enough sleep, exercising, and eating nutritious foods. Look for ways to help you cope by talking with a trusted friend, using relaxation techniques such as meditation, mindfulness, and guided imagery. and always try to get out in nature at least once a day. Until next time, stay well and safe.
Thank you, Karen. Managing stress is really important right now for all of us, now more than ever. So we look forward to seeing you back again soon with more tips to get and stay healthy. Next, I have a very important and timely topic for you. Given the heightened awareness in the world right now about racism and the Black Lives Matter movement following the death of George Floyd, among others, I invited a staff member at PCOA to join us. Sarah Bonson serves as our LGBTQ community liaison, and she's very involved in issues and advocacy around diversity, equity, and inclusion in our community. Welcome, Sarah.
Hey, Lisa, thanks for having me. I appreciate you touching base with this important topic.
Absolutely. Hey, I want to address something right off the bat. Some folks watching this might be wondering, she's talking about race. Why isn't she interviewing a Black person? Couldn't she find a person of color to talk with? Shouldn't conversations like this include the Black community? What do you have to say about that?
I'd say that's a fair question, a number of fair questions, and I'd like to talk about your last question first, and that shouldn't Black people be involved in this conversation? And I will say that they are, that they have been. The last month has been driven largely by the Black community. So in general, they are involved in this conversation. They're sounding the alarm. Something's not working right. I would say for today's interview, it's perfectly appropriate to have a white person involved in this conversation because it's our country's history of white supremacy. It's our history and culture of white supremacy that is creating these disparities, this oppression, all of these injustices. And it requires white participation to make it better. And I would say that until it has become normalized for white people to start talking about racial injustice, we're not going to get to where we need to go.
So Sarah, tell us about your background. What brought you to PCOA?
Well, a roundabout journey, but my educational background is in gender and women's studies from the U of A, and I have always been really passionate about the LGBTQ community, of which I am a part. I identify as queer, but I also minored in Africana studies. I think I've always been drawn to what I see as like the common enemy that is white supremacy, that's really created the structures that we're living with today. That are making things unfair, that are making things violent, that creates oppression and inequity. That's been my area of interest. What brought me to PCOA is there was an opportunity to educate my community about the needs and concerns of LGBTQ older people, and PCOA is a great organization. Of course, I jumped on that.
I know one of the questions that comes up, whether it's talking about the LGBTQ community or the Black community, any group that has been marginalized in our society today, the question comes up, how can we be good allies for that community or for those efforts? Can you address that?
Sure. It's a big question and an even bigger answer. I would say that an ally is a person that has made a lifelong commitment to understanding structural oppression and their part in it and does something to make it better, right? So it would say a lifelong commitment, because let's just assume that this is so complicated, then in 150 plus years, how many grandparents is that for you? We haven't solved it yet, right? Racism is still a problem. Racial inequity is still happening, right? We just are still celebrating LGBTQ victories, right? This week. Every day is Blur's Day in COVID-19 land. But so it's a person that is dedicating their lives to learning how this stuff works and how they can make a difference. That's what an ally is. I do have some good, more specific tips and tricks for beginners, but I do want people to understand that it's a lifelong journey of learning and unlearning the things that we've been taught, that we've been living with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And for someone like me who wants to understand better what types of things I can do from my chair to be able to make a difference, to be able to be helpful, can you give me some of those helpful tips and tricks as far as things to definitely do, things to definitely not do? That'd be really helpful.
Sure, absolutely. So the first one, do. Let's focus on the do list. You do listen. Marginalized communities are, and I think it's been very apparent in the last month, really making it clear where the issues are. So listen to marginalized voices. The second do is to educate yourself. Care about this enough that you take it upon yourself to seek out material, whether it's podcasts or books, movies, whatever it is your interest is. Seek out material that represents diverse voices, that represent experiences and cultures that are not your own. So learn about it. And the third do, I would say, is to do better, right? When we learn about structural oppression, when we learn about the injustices in the world, and we're able to figure out what our own biases are and how we're participating in those systems, then we have the opportunity to do better. It's also Pride Month, and there are a lot of really fun ways that you can learn about experiences that are not your own. Because of coronavirus, it may look a little bit different than in years past. But there are educational materials online. I think there's going to be a screening of Gen Silent on June 30th, and that'll teach you a lot about LGBTQ older people and their experiences. So there are positive ways that you can interact with these systems of violence. So do better, right? Learn more. Don'ts, I think, are also just as important. And the number one on my don't list is don't be so afraid of making a mistake that you don't participate in the process, right? We need you. We need all of us to be learning about this and doing better. So don't be so scared of making a mistake that you don't participate. Don't compare your struggles to marginalized people, right? If you're a white person and you have experienced poverty or violence, part of that adversity that you've experienced is not race, right? If you're a straight person or a cisgendered person, meaning you're not part of the LGBTQ community, whatever struggles you've experienced, not part of that communities, right? And so that just doesn't help you learn the structures that are in place that affect those communities. So don't make those comparisons. It just doesn't help you learn. And then the last one is don't expect to be taught by a single person, by a single anything, right? One person can't represent an entire community, an entire group of people. So care about it enough to be prolific in your efforts, right? And make sure that you do something every day to take on that journey.
Thank you for sharing those. I know that one of the things that I've become more aware of the last few weeks is, you know, I talk with friends and we all have been known to say things like, you know, I was raised to be colorblind, or I have a lot of Black friends, or I'm not certainly racist at all. It's those people, it's those other people that are the problem.
Sure.
And I think it's really one of the things I've become more and more aware of at this time is that, yes, that there's truth in that. And at the same time, there are things that I need to be more aware of. There are things I need to understand better, not because I've done them per se. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't, but there's structures in our society that I've been wholly unaware of because of my white privilege to not understanding that well. And it's important for me to be able to step forward and be willing to learn more and speak up more and consider the fact that there may be things that I don't understand and things that I need to do better on rather than pointing the finger anywhere else. And I think that's been really powerful for me right now.
Absolutely. I think that the system works best when we are complicit, when we align ourselves with this colorblind paradigm. That doesn't actually serve anybody, right? There are visible differences. When we align ourselves with that colorblind paradigm, then it does seek to kind of shut down our acts of engagement. And we do need to be able to look at ourselves in ways that enable us to say, this is a bias that does not align with my set of values. And I really need to examine that and address it. And I think until we start talking more broadly amongst white people about what that looks like and how we're benefiting from the system, we won't go where we need to go. So thank you for sharing that. That's definitely part of the journey.
Thank you, Sarah. I have to say you're really inspirational in your passion and your dedication to social justice and doing this work. And I so appreciate you coming here and sharing your wisdom with us. Hopefully you'll be able to come back and share more over the next several episodes.
I would love to. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, thanks. And now we present to you another caregiver tip of the week. I'd like to introduce you to some of our team with PCOA at Home. PCOA at Home is our home care company that's a part of PCOA. So I've been told to expect some weird combination of the program leaders, Rebecca, Yadira, and Guillermo. So let's see what they have for us.
Your helpful tip of the week for staying safe at home. We had someone coming into our home to help us, but stopped to reduce exposure to viruses and germs. We're still able to do many things, but at times we feel a bit unsteady, especially in the shower. What are some things we can do to help keep us safe?
Some of the things that we can do is use a swivel seat and a transfer bench. This allows us to transfer in and out of the shower safely. Sit on the swivel seat, swing our legs over, and slide over using the swivel seat. Now, one of the very helpful items that we have is a non-skid mat. This has suction cups on the bottom, and you're able to set it on the floor of the shower. As you stand, it prevents you from falling or slipping.
So along with these great items, we also have what we call a soapy sole, which also has the suction cups on the end. You simply put this down in the bottom of your tub. You can, while you're sitting or you're standing, throw some soap on there and actually be able to wash the bottom of your feet by yourself. This is a really good tool to ensure you're cleaning the bottom of your feet without having to bend over, or for those who have a limited mobility. We also have these adaptive devices, which is your sponge. It's an extended sponge so you can scrub the back, your back or hard to reach places and still ensure that your skin is clean.
Thanks, everybody. We hope that this helpful tip helps you. And if you'd like information on where to find any of things, please feel free to call us. You can also find them all online.
Our staff at PCOA at Home are both super helpful and super creative. I enjoy getting their perspective as often as possible, and I'm sure they will be back on future episodes of PCOA Voices to share more caregiving tips with you. Well, that's it for another show. Thank you for tuning in to PCOA Voices. We plan to bring you a new show on the 2nd and 4th Fridays of the month. So join us again on July 10th for our next episode. And in the meantime, I'd like to hear your caregiving questions. If you're helping care for a loved one or you coordinate services for a loved one, how can we help you? Perhaps we can specifically address your question or demonstrate how to perform a specific skill for you on a future episode. Send us an email at voices@pcoa.org. And if you're interested in more information from Sarah on how to be a good ally, or you want to be placed on an email list to receive a reminder and link to future episodes of PCOA Voices, you can just send us an email to voices@pcoa.org and we'll connect you there as well. So I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Until then, be safe and let your voice be heard. Bye, everybody.